best immersive directors in the world. So mixed reality, immersive reality, VR. Basically, he's an exceptional storyteller, but he uses what is not only current here with what some of the relationship with Oculus, he'll get more into that, but he is somebody who will talk to you a little bit about technology, not to be afraid of technology, using technology as your friend, that type of thing. Tony, without further ado, I would love to have you talk with these fine folks here about maybe a little bit of your history, where you came from in terms of career, and where you're going. And maybe we'll talk a little bit beyond that as well, with a little bit of question and answer, if that's okay with you.
That sounds great. And I just want to check with you guys really quickly too. Give a thumbs up if you can hear me clearly and I'm not cutting out too bad. I love that. That's so cool. On Zoom is crazy when I get on Zoom and somebody's like that, and they don't know it, you know. Thank you, Tamara, for the yellow thumbs up. I always appreciate that one the most. So my name is Tony Valenzuela. I was raised about an hour and a half out of Los Angeles in San Bernardino County, and from a small town called Fontana. It was very small then. It was like a 10,000 population, and I was born in 1972. I'm 49 years old, and when I was a kid, there was like just a couple of different television networks. Fox News and The Simpsons actually happened when I was a senior in high school, and I was so stoked to have just options, because for many years ABC, NBC, CBS had really controlled the narrative about like what was on television, what was acceptable sort of on television. So it was really the stories that you saw were mostly people who didn't look like me, and so that was something where I always wanted to be a part of entertainment. I used to, they had this thing called the TV Guide. Some of you may remember it, but I would get the TV Guide from the AM/PM across the street. I had to walk through a field, cross the street through snow, right? Not really, it's hot, always miserably hot there. But I would get the TV Guide from AM/PM, come home, and I would read it from cover to cover, because I was so excited about all the shows. I was so excited, more importantly than anything, I was excited in storytelling and the ability to get lost in that. And so completely dating myself here, I was reading comic books like X-Men, written by Chris Claremont. This was the 80s. Oh yeah, Queenie Yoon is like, yeah, that was it's so good. It frustrates me that like the stuff that I was reading as a kid is the only IP getting made these days. I find it very frustrating. You know, I'm like, there's so many beautiful stories. There is some breakthroughs like Harry Potter or the Hunger Games, but for the most part, all of these are getting made off IP that, like, Captain America existed before my parents were kind of, anyways, not to totally go off on a tangent. But I love storytelling, and I love the ability to transcend my boring little life there in Fontana, California, and escape into a different world. And so what happened for me is, when you love entertainment as much as I did, I moved to Los Angeles when I was 18 years old. I started working at KROQ, which was back then like a powerhouse radio station when radio still had a lot of power. And it was also a powerhouse because it was breaking a brand new thing called alternative music, right? And what would become electronic music as we know it today started back with this electronica, was the sort of hybrid term that we got. And it was really awesome to be there as Louis Largent was programming. He was programming KROQ, that became that whole brand, all indie rock and alt rock, that all started, a lot of it from Southern California. That was like our pride for a long time. And now it's just this kind of ubiquitous music, and all your parents listen to it and they go, remember the good old days? But back then it was like this really incredible breakthrough, this sort of breakthrough sound. But the reason why I bring up KROQ, sorry, it is too hot in here. I'm on a sound stage because we're shooting Monday and Tuesday, and this is where I set up. And it is just too hot here. And I've been living since pandemic. I've been working remotely between Lake Tahoe and Bellingham, Washington, just because I love forest and I love green, and I'm from the desert, so I love rain, you know. But I don't have hot clothes here. I don't have my warm clothes. I left them all in Truckee because I'm like, it's 28 degrees. They can't be much warmer, you know. Like, anyways, y'all know how that went. I wanted to tell you the story about K-Rock specifically for this reason.
And
My
Tony,
friend,
I'm just gonna hold back. Again, K-Rock is a Southern California radio station. So this is Tony's, his beginnings in the workforce.
oh yeah, and how many people are in California? Raise your hand. Oh, cool, a bunch of you are, awesome. I want to tell you this story really quickly because I think it's really important. Thank you, Poonam, for putting up your yellow hand. I love that, and I can just look right at you. I'm telling you this story because I think it's super important. My friend was an intern at K-Rock, and she wanted somebody who would drive to LA with her, and so that she could use the carpool lane, because we were like an hour and a half out of the city, 2 hours out of the city. And if by putting me in the seat next to her, she could drive in the carpool lane all the way here. And she said, will you go with me? And I was like, yeah, I'll go with you. And I really wanted an internship at K-Rock, but I didn't know how to get it or who to talk to. But it seemed so far away from anything that I was able to do. So I would go with her to her internship. I think it was 2 or 3 days a week. And I would be her passenger in the car. And then eventually I started going up into the lobby at K-Rock. It was in Burbank, right across from Warner Brothers Records. And so I would go and I'd hang out downstairs in Daltz and just order coffee because I was completely broke. So I would just order a coffee or something. And then eventually I started hanging out in the lobby of K-Rock because I wanted to work at K-Rock. I wanted to be part of entertainment. I think I was working at a mall at a tobacco place at that point, just paying my rent and doing my thing. And so I would sit in the lobby, and I became friends with the receptionist at K-Rock. Her name is Lisa. And she just started talking to me and we became friends. And so when Sarah would go there to do her internship, which it was 3 hours, and it was during Kevin and Bean's shift, and they were only, I think, 2 years. They'd only been on air 2 years at that point. So they were still kind of working out stuff. And so I would go hang out in the lobby and talk to Lisa. And eventually, every time I went with Sarah, I just hung out and was just sitting there. So a month passes. It felt like a month. It was probably like 3 weeks. And the head of the internship program walked out into the lobby and was like, I forget it, Emily. She's like, my name is Emily. What's your name? I'm like, my name is Tony. And she was like, so do you want to be back there with us or do you want to be up front of the lobby? And I was like, oh yes, I would like to be back there with you, And that was such an important thing because it was the persistence. I was driven to be a part of entertainment. I was driven to be a storyteller. I was driven to do these things. And it put me, if you just show up, right? If you just show up, people see the passion and they see that you care about what you're doing, and they will pull you in because they're looking for people like you who actually care, right? There's so many people who sort of end up there because there's no better place, or et cetera, et cetera. But if they see the passion in you, they will respond to that. And I just need to say that. It's not about them saying yes. Like if you work in entertainment like I do, rejection is like 90% of it. You become very comfortable with it. It's just part of it, right? But you just keep showing up and you don't give up. And I think that's for me, that is the secret to working in entertainment or any field that you decide to work in, is you just don't give up. And don't listen to other people when they tell you, oh, you should do this or you should do that, because at the end of the day, you guys have to do the work. So love what you're doing, because you're gonna work. And if you love taxes, then work as an accountant. You know what I mean? Like, do the thing you love, because no matter what, if you want to succeed, if you want to enjoy your life, it requires a lot of work. I'm at K-Rock. Then I go to a company called Delicious Vinyl. They're breaking this brand new form of music called hip hop. There was no hip hop on the radio at that point. It was a total fight. I ended up working for a pop promotion person who was trying to get hip hop on the radio when it was just all these sort of legacy R&B bands, and hip hop was just beginning. It was wonderful. And so I got an opportunity to do that. And then I went to Warner Brothers Records. I ended up doing A&R, and I started working with a black rock band. And that was totally amazing, heartbreaking experience, because right when we finished the records, Warner Brothers folded internally, and they brought over Danny Goldberg, who was the manager of Nirvana. They brought him in to fix Warner Brothers because Nirvana broke, all this stuff broke. And I was like, was like, I've had enough of you, America. You're what's wrong with, I'm out of here. I went to Munich to make electronic music, and I got signed to BMG as a music publisher. And I did that for a couple of years, and that was quite fun. And I learned, and then I came back to the United States, got a job in a mailroom, ended up as the creative director of CBS on the agency side for print advertising. And then I did that until 12 years ago. And then I was like, this is lame. I want to do something more creative, as we all want to do, or maybe not, you know, but that's what I wanted to do. And I did a web series, and I posted it to this awesome MySpace player. It was so cool. It was like HD. It was super fancy. And I posted this web series, which there wasn't even a term web series yet. This is 2008. And I posted it to this player called VO, which was going to be, oh, was it VO? I don't know, it was some other one, whatever it was. They're gone now. I think they're like a Russian website or something. They're totally disappeared. And I also posted it to this really crappy video player that was 4.3 and had really bad streaming, nowhere near as good as MySpace. And that platform is called YouTube. And I saw that pop off there. And just a couple of months later, Wes Craven, the director of Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, a ton of really important horror movies that I really liked, found that and put it, when he was guest curator for Halloween some years ago, 2008, he was the guest curator for YouTube for Halloween. He put it in his top 10 horror series on YouTube. By the way, I didn't know I was a horror director. I learned that much later, but it's just the kind of stuff I made. It's the stuff that was attractive to me at that point. And I was off to the races. Agent at William Burroughs. Isn't that funny? William Burroughs Agency, William Morris Agency. I got an agent there. I went right away and worked with Coca-Cola for Sprite. I did this whole web series. It was a very interesting experience, is all I'll say, because we're recording right now, but I learned a lot. And then I also did a website companion web series for a CBS show. So my old client became my partner very quickly. That was really fun, as they were talking to me how they wanted to market the show I was working on. That experience, because this is like 2009 now, I realized that big corporations like CBS or Coca-Cola really didn't understand the internet yet, and I didn't want to waste time in that space. And so I jumped back to YouTube, and all these people were seeking me out that they wanted to work with me, that they'd seen my series and that they loved it. That was the rise of the YouTuber. Which the term wasn't even YouTuber yet. We knew each other as broke artists who didn't know how to get stuff into production. So people like Shane Dawson back then, iJustine, Toby Turner, Philip DeFranco, what became the Station Maker Studio, all these people were just helping each other out because none of us knew what we were doing. And we were just trying to get our movies made and our stories out there using YouTube. So through Google for YouTube originals, because I was doing short form and they were like, we love what you do, you're getting great numbers. I did that for a while, and then I jumped and made my first film with IFC. That was a horror movie. It says my internet's unstable, so I'm just gonna like become stabilized. Saransh, am I stabilized?
You're pretty stable to me, Tony.
Okay, good.
Looks so.
I love that version. We've become stabilized together. I made my first film, learned about that, which is really literally like getting a public spanking, because there's so much to learn with your first film. And every critic who wrote a scathing review of it, I tweeted them and said, thank you so much, because I was honest. They had actually seen the thing that I did, and I was appreciative of that, you know? And also, by the way, they had some great notes. So I was like, thank you for your feedback, right? I did that. I'm on my second film right now that's going through post-production. But 5 years ago, I really was like, okay, film is my dad's medium, you know? Like, it's this 2D storytelling is something that we've seen since we were all born. And there's some say they perfected the medium in the 70s with Kubrick and then Lucas, and that these guys have already perfected this medium. And so I jumped into VR. And 5 years ago, it was basically the Wild West. It is still to this extent someday. It is to this day still to some extent the Wild West. But back then it was like people were telling me things like, you can't move the camera, you can't do this, da 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 da. And I was, as a film director, I was like, but you have to move the camera, because as soon as you move the camera, there's an opinion about what we're watching as viewers, right? And so I learned a game engine called Unity. I learned how to put a virtual camera in there to export. I know some of you guys are nodding, you know what's up. I learned how to export these 360 VR movies, and VR, just to explain it really simply, because people can get it really sort of complicated, is instead of the one eye, like the one eye this camera is, you have two eyes. You have the right eye and the left eye. For those of you who remember, there was a thing called ViewMaster that you use when you're a kid, and it's a little, this little thing has two eyes and a little disc that go in, and you click it like this, and it creates stereoscopic. All VR is a live action version of a ViewMaster. If you don't know what that is, Google ViewMaster, you'll understand all of VR tech in just a couple of minutes. The cool thing that happened for me is that I was able to innovate again in a space that was becoming nascent. And I was able to do things the way that I wanted to do them, and learn how to create in a medium as I wanted to. I'm now working with Oculus. They did a really big push for Black Box TV, which is the brand I created on YouTube. And I've worked, and it's still my brand now. There's a Black Box TV presence on Oculus that's pretty great. And I'm very excited about Oculus for next year. Here's my big old long ass story. Did you guys like that? That's really long. That's like decades of information, but I want to tell you how that story really works, right? Software. It's all about software. It's all about me not being afraid to learn new stuff. For those of you who work in Unity right now, which is that 3D program where I've created a lot of VR experiences, my mentor's like, you got to get into Unreal. And I'm like, okay, it's been 2 years since I learned a brand new piece of software. Let's go. So I'm going to tell you about the software back from the beginning. I'm making Electronica living in Germany, and I'm using Digital Performer and Logic, these sequencing programs. But at the same time, I'm making CD covers and flyers for my band. And so I really get into this thing called Photoshop, right? And I get really into Photoshop. I become so good at Photoshop that when I crash land back in the States, I'm working at an ad agent in the mailroom, and the creative director's assistant saw the digital artwork I was creating and just putting it on my wall because it was my homework. I was going, one of my friends is like, you're good, you should get really good at Photoshop. So I was like, oh, whatever, you can't teach me anything, I'm perfect, but I'll take the class. So I took the class. The homework from that class was sitting next to my desk at this ad agency. The creative director's assistant walked in, saw it, and said, who's doing this stuff? And I was like, that's me, that's my homework. And by the way, I should have put it up there faster because I worked in the mailroom for a year and a half. If I would have known this, I would have put it up faster. But they took me out. They took me out of the mailroom pretty quickly, and I was working on ads for Sonic Care and some other brands because they didn't know. Like, they used to have to send off that work to a specialized shop who would create all of this stuff, and I could do it in Photoshop in like 2 hours. And I have all of these people twice my age sitting around me or standing around me, including the art directors and senior art directors at that agency, who was like, what are you doing? And I was putting bubbles on a toothbrush, and they were like, that's magic. So that led me to working at CBS, where things got really, really fun. Kathy Broyles was the head of the print department then. She had created the movie posters for Sid and Nancy, Michael Mann films, Ridley Scott films, like really incredible directors. And a lot of the iconic posters that we see, she had her hands in. So the people at my agency really didn't like her because she was so exacting, and I loved her. I know her to this day because she pushed me. And I got all of that education firsthand because I'd be sitting at work till 11 o'clock at night, and she'd be like, this is not right. The font is not right. And what an incredible education I got. I want to say something too really quickly. My mom said something recently I love. She said, life is permanent on the job training. We are always learning. So if you remain teachable and remain open, your life gets really cool. If you want to be fixed and sort of say, this is the way things are, the moment that you decide that you know everything, you stop growing. And I'm 49. I've really enjoyed my life. I love it. There's still so much in front of me, but I've remained teachable. It's very key to having, in my opinion, to having a really wonderful life and a flourishing experience. I don't know if flourishing experience is a term, but we just coined it here. It doesn't sound
Counts,
really.
Tony, it counts for sure.
Copy that. So then the next piece of software after Photoshop is I learned this thing called Final Cut Express. They don't even make it anymore. And I'm on my Mac with Final Cut Express, and that created my first web series, right? And then I move on to Final Cut, then I move on to Adobe Premiere Pro, all of this stuff, just being open to new software. And by the way, making some mistakes along the way and learning software that wasn't helpful. I'm not going to call them out by name because we are recording. And then VR, I want to get into VR, and all these production companies are telling me that it costs like thousands of dollars. And I was like, the markup from the production companies is so high because they actually don't know what they're doing. So they're subbing out the work. So let me find out where it's actually coming from. And that's when I jumped into Unity, like I did explain before. And Unity has been so amazing. This year earlier, I learned a new production pipeline called high definition HDRP is what it's called. So it's high definition CGI. It's really, you can create beautiful stuff. You can get really beautiful lights with like casting light rays. It looks very cinematic. And so bringing you to this point, when I was talking about Jake, about getting the opportunity to speak with you guys, I really, to summarize all of this, my story is probably different than yours. You may have completely different goals than me, but the thing that we can all share is an openness to software, an openness to learn stuff, mostly so that you can manipulate it and get out of it what you want. All right. What do you got for me, Jake?
Well, first of all, Tony, it's really a pleasure. You know, you and I have been friends for a while. So, you know, the joy that I have is that Tony and I talk about, hey, how can we creatively connect and work together, right? I mean, and those are the other things I think that when Tony's talking about as you meet people, you know, he rode in somebody's car to help them get through traffic, but that was a teammate. And that teammate ended up getting him a job, right? And you all are teammates here for each other, and you can help each other on your pursuits. You know, if you know, those of you who have class with me outside of this class, I'm always talking about do this assignment so that it matters to you. Make it worthwhile for you. Make it worth your time because you're going to spend time on it. That's exactly what Tony's saying about the workforce. It's the same thing, right? And so, Tony, let me ask you some questions. I have, you know, obviously some insight into your background. You're very humble. So you have a lot of accomplishments and you're very humble. So I'm going to ask you some things. Okay.
Okay.
So, you know, Wes Craven, sure. He posted, you know, he found you because you're new to this platform. He liked your stuff, but Wes Craven is, you know, in terms of ranking in certain types of directors, he's pretty high on that list, right? He picked you. There are other directors, you know, one whose letter starts with a G. So talk to me about some of the other stuff that you've done that has led you to this world of interacting with people you probably would never have interacted with.
Yeah, thank you. So sometimes in the last, I think before the pandemic, I think I had gotten a little bit bitter because I'd been up to bat with some really great people like Guillermo del Toro. Speaking of the guy with the G, like I'd gotten the opportunity to work with these people and promises were made to me, and it didn't always turn out, you know. And so I think the thing is that I definitely got a little bit tired in the last couple of years. Then I liked being like, screw you guys, I'm going to Oculus. Like, I'm not playing with you guys anymore. You're just too dishonest, just to be very honest with you guys, you know? I don't want to play in this dishonest field. I say my mantra is I work in fiction. I don't want to live in fiction. That's like essential. So I pick partners based upon their ability to show up and kick ass. I do not pick my partners based upon their ability to hype. It's just
Yeah.
not interesting.
So Tony, part of it, I think for all of you listening, I know exactly what Tony's talking about. He's talking about Hollywood and a lot of, you know, promises that are not even broken. They're not even real to begin with, right? So in certain cultures, if you say, "Oh, that was really nice to meet you, thank you," that means no, right? And culturally, you know that means no, right? But Hollywood is a very difficult place because people are questioning, maybe there's a boss over their shoulder and they're wondering whether or not they're going to be able to keep their career. So people are really afraid to say what they want to say. The reason why Tony and I get along is we don't care. We say what we mean, and that's it.
It just
And
takes too much time. And I had a wonderful experience with Jake, with your teacher last year. I right during it, we'd been in lockdown for like 2 months, and I was still living in Mount Washington, like 15 minutes from downtown Los Angeles. And the protests in Los Angeles started, and I was like, oh, I have this gear. I'd never worked with a crew of just one. I always work with at least 4 or 5 people, right? And I was like by myself, and I was bored, and I just wanted, and I started to go cover the protests that happened in Los Angeles. And it was so wonderful because I got to talk to these people and hear their stories. And Oculus ended up licensing a ton of that footage for a documentary that they did, totally disconnected from the other work that I am doing with them. And then I was like, and then so I went up to Truckee, and I was there for a couple of weeks, and I was like, you know, Portland's popping off, and that seems like the stupidest place to go and try to shoot VR. Let's do it. And I called Jake on my way to Portland, and I was like, buddy, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I should do it. And I was like, Jake, what do you got for me? And he gave me the ups and the downs and tips and important stuff, and the importance of just being direct with people, with not making any promises, a lot of just really great stuff. I ended up back and forth to Portland up until, where are we now? 2021. Last time I was there was the spring. And I got to do follow-up with interviews with all of these people. And the footage is so that we're actually going to release it as a 2D documentary, because it's the experiences are too valuable just to put on Oculus, you know, just for people who can afford the goggles. And I had just incredible one-of-a-kind experiences. And I was filming a guy, and this crazy guy, and he was trying to block a protest with his car, and then he pulled a gun, and all this stuff happened. And I'm like by his driver's window, and then NBC came after me, and ABC, and people wanted the footage and blah blah blah. And I called Jake. I'm like, Jake, what am I doing? Please, like, what, you know? And Jake gave me great feedback. So the importance of being honest with people, even though we're all afraid, we're all insecure. That's just the nature of life, right? Like I said, life is permanent on the job training. But if you are vulnerable and honest with people, you will bring out the vulnerability and the honesty in them. And together you can make something great. Not to talk disparagingly about my first film, but in my first film, I made a huge fundamental error about making that film. And that is that I thought I needed to have all the answers. And that was and I think every director goes through with it, but what a waste of time. I have these incredible artists, really talented people, and I'm not utilizing them because I feel like I need to have all the answers because of my own insecurities, about where I came from, or the school that I went to, or all those kind of things. And that made me feel like I have to be the guy. That guy is completely fucking boring for me right now. Sorry about my language. Like, the opportunity to be in Portland and capture the stories. There was this guy who was hit with a non-lethal round by a federal officer, almost at point blank range. I think that's what he said, point blank. Yeah. And he was hit with a non-lethal round in the head. And then to him again, as he had people like sort of hunting him in a little way. And then I went back to him again. And this is over the course of almost a year. He's a city commissioner in Portland now. And the opportunity to be there all along, hearing how the story developed, like that's about the opportunities that I have as a storyteller.
The persistence hasn't stopped. You know, it's the thing that I love is that, you know, people can call it whatever they want, young at heart, desire to learn, a curiosity. I think once you stop that desire, you become stale, right? And I think as a worker in whatever industry you're in terms of people you've collaborated with over the years, tell us a little bit about where you've seen people kind of experience the same kind of growth. And have you seen that among colleagues and friends? Obviously, with me, you know that I'm a kid at heart, and I'm always learning. That doesn't count because I'm right here with you, and
Yeah,
everybody here knows it. But in terms of what you've seen, in terms of storytelling itself, and some storytellers maybe you haven't worked with, but ones who you've noticed who have kind of pushed it to another level, and not taken the standard, well, that's not how it's done,
Mm.
and found a way. Anything there?
Yeah, there's two sides. I'm going to do the maybe a sort of a bad example, or like a thing to think about, something to consider, I guess you should say. I don't want to color it too much because you should make your own decision. I got a chance to, I did a short film for Legendary Pictures. Guillermo del Toro chose it as one of his top 5, and I got to go to Toronto to meet him in person. And he was like, he was so important. He would ask me some really personal questions, and he just wanted to sort of, he wanted to see where I was at as an artist. And he was so wonderful. And he had just finished Crimson Peak, which was going to be kind of a not a very successful movie. And he was about to do the film that he won an Oscar for. And he was just very honest. And he asked me such a dangerous question. And we were just the two of us sitting in this room. And he was like, do you trust the people around you? Because you're really good. And it was such an interesting question. And I wasn't ready to be honest about that yet. You know, I was just to work with me. I was kind of in my hustle mode. And when he came to Los Angeles, he ended up doing a Q&A. And he requested through YouTube that I be the one to do the Q&A. And I got the chance to go see him again. And he just, like, I said, can I just record this? And I have these hours long conversations with Guillermo, and he's such a beautiful man and such a sweet, just a good dude, you know, he's just a really good guy. And so his openness was really amazing. James Cameron, who I interviewed for Black Box TV right at the beginning in 2008, his openness was pretty special. If you do go to Black Box TV, which is still my YouTube channel this day, and you go all the way down, there's a thing that says behind the scenes and interviews. And in that is my conversation with Wes Craven, my conversation with James Cameron. And Universal didn't let me post stuff, but there's one little clip of me talking to Guillermo, but there's a ton of stuff. Of course they cut me out of it. And I have white hair too, but they were just like, I do the prompt and then they just used his stuff, but that's okay. It's Guillermo del Toro. So that's the thing. I think there's an openness and an honesty and a fearlessness about how they share information. They want to exchange with you. They want to know what you think about what they're doing. They're in the creative flow. And that's what I've seen from the top guys in my humble experience. And then on the other side, being a YouTuber was a very dangerous thing for a person like myself who is an artist and is a director, because YouTube, and not disparaging them, but because of the production style of YouTube, in which you're usually one artist, right? You're one person shooting, editing, all that kind of stuff. The danger about it is it starts to rob you of the ability to collaborate with others, which is hugely dangerous for any project that involves past you being in, you sitting in your room doing a gameplay walkthrough or doing a vlog, which, by the way, those are my friends. Are still, they've had incredible careers in that stuff. And I have respect the fact that they can do 5 videos a week. I can't do 5 videos a week, man. I'm like, how are we going to light it? How are we going to do it? Because I really want it to be transcendent. And a lot of I still watch them and I still enjoy their stuff, but I would definitely say that there is because, okay, I'm going to say this, and if you think it's inappropriate, Jake, edit it out. The danger of social media, is, one, part of being an artist is to be frustrated. You have this frustration and it grows in you, and then all that energy turns into one entire piece. Maybe it takes a day to develop, or maybe it takes 3 years to develop, but that thing goes and hits the marketplace and people are like, oh my God, what a fully formed thing. I think about like The Witch, that horror movie from that director who had been a and he just was so frustrated earning a lot of money and being commercial director, and he gave us this perfectly formed thing. There's so many examples of that. Squid Game too. We're all reading Korean subtitles. 10 years ago, would you have been like, the biggest show in the world will involve Korean subtitles? I don't know. But they manifested those stories that took them a lot of time, a lot of no's, and a lot of frustrations. The problem with social media is you're giving it out for free, piece by piece by piece by piece by piece by piece. And the thing is that, and again, not to be disparaging, and again, if you think this is inappropriate, edit it out.
Tony, I will never edit you. Period. Okay.
I feel very okay.
Maybe on a film, you and I can be in an editing session together and we can edit together, but I'm not going to edit you. There we go.
I feel very hesitant to let social media be the primary source of my income, or even to post all the time to social media, because one, I need that creative time to really get into the thing, and two, I don't know about you guys, but I feel strange about volunteering for Fortune 500 tech companies who pay me in dopamine. That's like, for every like I've got on every piece of content or all that stuff that's happened, I have never been able to go to a bank and cash a check full of dopamine. I'm like, yo, bank, I got like 1 million likes. That must be like something. And they're like, security. So I think it's important as people who create products, because that's what these all are, right? We create these things, we create products. A story is a product, a movie is a product. An Excel sheet done beautifully is a product. As we create these things, I believe that I need to be compensated for my hard work. That's very important for me. By the way, I love social media, and it's something that I use. I've got almost no followers on Instagram. That's where I post because my friends go there. I don't post to YouTube where I have 1 million+ subscribers, because it's just like posting into the ether. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, because I think there's 2 examples of there right now. Don't give it away for free. There are platforms all over the place where their entire business model is that they do not pay you for your work. I'm sorry, that's the end of my soapbox.
No, thank you, Tony. No, I asked it because I knew you had something to say there. I put Black Box TV, the link in the chat box for everybody to check it out. So certainly after, don't do it now because Tony's with us right now. This is a special time where we get Tony. Tony, you are running into pumpkin time now, because I know you have a deadline. So I'm going to open it up maybe for some questions for anybody here real fast. A couple of questions to Tony. Anybody have some questions? I mean, I could talk with you all. I mean, I do talk with you. So if I keep asking questions, you'll never make your deadline. Anybody have some questions here?
I'll ask a question.
Great.
Hi.
Hi, Tamara.
I'm Tamara.
Tamara.
So you're talking about social media and how, you don't like that to be your #1 source of income. I respect that. But we live in a society where there's so many people that, identify as content creators. They identify as, I don't know, influencers, whatever you want to call them, YouTubers, Instagrammers.
Yeah.
What do you, think about that? I feel like there's so many people out there. I even heard somewhere that there was a stimulus check for people that were influencers during the pandemic because they were entertaining the public. So you can definitely, have a sustaining business, but like, what are the numbers that you have to hit in order to just have that be your primary source of income?
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question. So I came from advertising before YouTube. So the issue why I didn't, because there was a lot of my friends at the time that were like, you should start a vlog channel. You'll
Mhm.
get tons of numbers, blah blah blah. But the reason why I didn't do it is because their livelihood depended upon brand integration. So they're basically become advertising spokespeople, right? And the problem is that coming from advertising, I knew how little they were actually paying them for their value. That's still pretty much the same thing now. So it kind of was like a rub for me. I believe that what we're going to see in the future is that Instagram will start paying people what they're actually worth. YouTube needs to start paying people what they're actually worth. I have views on a lot of my videos on Black Box TV that get more views than a highly rated cable show, but I'm getting like 1/10, 1/20th of what they're getting paid. So
Mhm.
I still post to YouTube and I still post to these platforms because I know eventually they will catch up. But as far as becoming an influencer, if that's important to you and you get the feedback that you enjoy, like personally, creatively, et cetera, then what I would give somebody as a piece of advice is make sure you know, if that is your goal, what kind of brands that you work best with, because then you can curate your content to fit that brand the best, whether it's video games or lifestyle, meaning like fashion and makeup.
Mhm.
Like make sure that you have a little bit of a plan, and then be open if you see your content catch in a certain way, be willing to lean into that as well.
Mhm. Cool. Thank you.
Great question, great answer. So we have time maybe for one more. Tony's like, I don't
That
have
is correct. That
No,
is
you're
correct.
so. Does anybody have a question? A quick question? Don't be shy to ask, but it'll have to be kind of a quick one. Anybody have a quick question?
Hey Tony, this is Javier Cisneros. I
Javier?
don't know if you're familiar with Web3 or the blockchain. I think there is a way where this technology will allow to decentralize this media, video games away from these giant platforms like Facebook or YouTube. What do you think about that? And what do you think it will? How do you think it will change the current state of the industry?
I don't know enough. I'm not even 10. I don't know enough. There's a environmental activist. She's a teacher at UCLA who wants me to come and film with her. She's really she's really interested in immersive video, and she wants me to go on journeys with supply chains and all this, like literally physical supply chains. And one of the things I'm excited about is she can explain to me what the hell blockchain is. But dude, Javier, are you on Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay, so follow me at Black Box TV. I'll follow you back because I want to get I want the rundown from an inside source of how that's gonna work.
Sweet. Yeah, it's good. And I completely agree with your idea of software is everything. Software tools are enabling us to do the job of 10 people at the same time. And the people that learn about software is the people that have the advantage over everybody else. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tony, I have to say thank you to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to take a picture. We're all going to take a picture together before Tony leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and try and take a picture here. Grace, maybe you can take a picture as well. So I'm going to count down to 3. Everybody smile. 1, 2, 3. I think I got it. All right, Tony, thank you very much for joining us. Good luck with your production. Can't wait to see it, and look forward to chatting with you when you come up for air. Thank
Beautiful.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Good. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tony. Is he there? I don't know. I don't know if he's here or not.
Yeah.
I think he's still here. Maybe. We'll find out. All right. So, how was that, everybody? He's an interesting fellow, right?